I've been playing a ton of the new Oblivion remaster over the past few days that it's been out, and so far it's one of the best of its kind in recent years. And what I mean by that is it's both stunning and beautiful without losing the charm of the original like many of these remasters do. That being said, there is a fair share of problems here, but since this is a Bethesda title, many of them have already been solved by the community themselves. So in typical Retro Renew fashion, what we're going to do is go through some mods, settings that I've been using to squeeze out every single last drop of visuals, performance, and most importantly the faithfulness. Oh, and that damn goofy sprint animation as well. This video is sponsored by Instant Gaming, but more on that later on in the video. First, we need to tackle the elephant in the room, and that's the I was optimistic, but also my expectations were set quite low, and well, they were pretty much met. The visuals of the Unreal Engine improved tremendously each year, but the same cannot be said for the optimization. It's a common trend that this is an afterthought, as is compressing those mega large file sizes. This game stutters like hell, and it's also 120 gigabytes over the original's 4 gigabytes. I don't think we should be expecting the game to run at 300 FPS and be only 12 gigabytes, but to struggle to get 60 on a 3080 with 7800X3D is, to be honest, really disappointing. We're expected to just use DLSS and FrameGen, but I don't think it's the right solution to the actual core of the problem here. We unfortunately just have to deal with it though. For my 1440p monitor, I found that DLSS at quality or balanced was good enough. However, by default, everything looks super blurry with a lot of shimmering going on, especially in the trees. It did, however, make me reach that preferred 60 FPS. Now the reason for this super poor quality is because the game is using a super outdated version of DLSS. This can easily be fixed though with a program like DLSS Swapper. I think it's important to force the latest DLSS 4 preset as well through something like the Nvidia app, Inspector, or what I like to do, which is just launch the game through Special K and enable it through there. The one that we want to be looking for is Preset K. Now the reason I use Special K over just enabling it in the Nvidia app is because I know for sure that it's working. With the other methods, I tend to second guess myself whether I've put them on or not. This improved the image quality quite a bit. It's not native res, but much improved. There's still some weird elements around the trees. I also find with this that when you're using the latest preset, you tend to get away with dropping the quality preset by 1 without losing as much quality, so what I did was take it down from quality to balanced. Now because I have a 30 series card, I can't use DLSS FrameGen, but as long as you can use FSR FrameGen with your card, you can actually use that alongside DLSS upscaling. All you need to do is download this mod and use the universal version of it. You need to drag everything in this folder next to where the game's exe is. I spent an embarrassingly long time just putting it in the exe that's right in the folder. You need to actually go deeper into the binaries and then Win64. Now with that installed, the DLSS FrameGen option is no longer grayed out. This allows anyone that's not on a 40 series card to just benefit from DLSS upscaling whilst also being able to use FrameGen. In terms of benchmarks, high is definitely the right move over ultra as the visuals don't really change that much. Furthermore, Benchmark King's optimized settings really did help squeeze every last bit of performance out without making the game look bad. I highly recommend this channel, by the way. I've been watching him for a while and he puts so much effort into testing every single setting, so if you want further insight into Oblivion and how it runs, go check out that video. Now getting into the more spicier stuff, I have a huge pile of mods that I tested for this video. For example, there are a plethora of optimization ones that all claim to boost performance, and I really wanted to see what was actually working rather than relying on my eyes. So I walked up and down the same spot over and over again, testing each one of them to try and get the closest to do a fair drag race. One of the first and the most popular ones is Ultimate Engine Tweaks mod. Not only does it try to boost performance and input latency, but it also removes some visual clutter such as noise and chromatic aberration. For performance though, it sort of did the opposite, it tanked my frames. I've heard that these kind of tweaks to games sometimes have this effect where they actually do the complete opposite, but I've heard a lot of people that they got so much performance out of this mod, so I think I'm a single case basis where it just didn't work for me. I wanted to give it a fair shot though, so I installed the other no VRR version, as before I was using G-Sync as well as V-Sync on for my testing. So with this version as well as G-Sync and V-Sync completely disabled, it completely destroyed my game's performance. I reran this 3 times with the same results, so I'm really not sure what to conclude here other than I'm gonna keep G-Sync on. Similar mods in this vein are the Oblivion Optimizer, which performed the best in my testing. The V2 version gave me slighter better 1% lows, but still a decrease over the no tweaks at all. The same can be said for Optimalsations and Optimize Tweak. Overall, I'm just going to stick with no tweaks at all, but I still encourage you to try them out at least, especially for those of you that are dealing with a lot of stuttering or input latency issues. I'd try Ultimate Engine tweaks and then use Oblivion Optimizer as a backup option. Visually, like we've said, the remaster is pretty stunning, but one thing that sticked out to me and many is the difference in color grading compared to the original. Looking at them side by side, it's almost like in the remaster you have some sunglasses on. There's quite a few popular reshade presets out there that aim to bring back this original look, but for me the best way to do this is with a mod called Classic Graphics. I just much preferred this over the reshade method because it actually affects the game's colours at its core rather than just another post-processing effect over the top. The UI of this remaster is another thing they did really well. Menus like the inventory system are quick and easy to understand over the original, but one thing I think a lot of people would agree on is the fact that the style of the original is pretty much absent. It's trading style for minimalism as well as similarity due to looking a little bit more like Skyrim's UI. I don't think it's a crime to the original, but simple classic HUD definitely brings back the old UI's feeling without compromising and going back to the old layout. It only covers the main in-game UI such as the compass, the bars at the bottom, and spells. The menus themselves stay the same. Pairing it with something like better HUD also stacks the bottom bars on top of each other instead of side by side. There's also a version here that makes all of the HUD just a little bit smaller. Another small UI mod that I got was better Infoboxes, which just gets rid of the black background on some of the pop-up elements. And FuzzUI, which is great for people like me that is over encumbered 90% of the time. It resizes everything in a way to give you way more information at a glance. The last little mod that I added was better Reticle, as the default one is just so massive in comparison. The remaster makes a few changes to gameplay and leveling, and for the most part they are good changes, however some things like leveled items haven't been fixed properly. In both this and the original, when you are rewarded a weapon, like say at the end of a questline, you were given the weapon at whatever level you are currently at when you got it. This is fine at first, but when you eventually out-level it, you start getting really basic weapons from mobs that are dropping higher stats, making it completely obsolete. There's a few community solutions for this problem, but balanced unlevel rewards seems to do it pretty well. Basically, it locks the level of all items and spells to a specific one set by the mod. These values are set based on how hard they are to obtain, with a goal to balance it as best as possible. This is how it works in Skyrim. Another mod by the same author is Balanced NPC Level Cap. The original just scales all characters to your level, which I personally don't really enjoy in RPGs. I really like feeling like my character is getting stronger as I play through the game, and going back to earlier dungeons to do the same damage isn't that fun in my opinion. This mod doesn't make NPCs not level with you, but what it does is when they reach a certain level they will stop going any higher. And every NPC has a different level ceiling. This is done via automation by the modder, but they also went through it manually to check for any errors or imbalance. To cap off this mod, there is another one by the same person called Ascension Remastered. I didn't get to test this one for this video, but this is a pretty extensive one that a lot of people were excited for, as it's been ported from the original. It does things like thoroughly overhauling the loot so that rare equipment is actually rare, dungeons feel rewarding, enemies and loot no longer stop spawning at higher levels, underused gameplay aspects have been made more worthwhile, and the difficulty has been ever so slightly increased overall. It's going to make progression in the game a whole lot more rewarding. It is, however, quite a big change from the original, so my advice would be to maybe leave this one for a future separate playthrough. If you don't own the game already, then you can grab it through today's sponsor, Instant Gaming. They offer great deals on the latest titles, and all of their keys are directly sourced by them. So unlike other key sites where you're buying from randoms online that might sell you keys that don't work or are stolen, everything here is verified by them. An amazing feature that I love about the platform is the fact that I can pre-order any of the games and get refunded the difference if the price drops before launch, ensuring that I get the best deal. I've personally been using them since 2018 with not a single issue, and keys have always been delivered within literal seconds. Use my link in the description to save money on great games while supporting the channel. Now, difficulty has been a big problem within the community. The easier ones make it so you can basically 1 or 2 tap any mob in the game, whilst the harder ones make it so that it's impossible to kill anything. Difficulty slider fix adjusts the damage taken as well as damage dealt multipliers. There are many versions that you can choose here, with the 1.5x and 2x ones being the most popular. A much smaller thing that I wanted to fix was the two-handed weapons. I've been playing a warrior in the game, and by default, these kind of weapons swing a hell of a lot slower than in the original, but they also do so little damage compared to one-handed. That means as much as I wanted to use these weapons, it just was not viable, and apparently this is because they slowed down the swings in this remaster, but didn't do any updates to the damage that it outputs from the original. Therefore, using a mod like stronger two-handed weapons just increases the damage that they output. The default multiplies the damage by 1.6, which I thought was a nice balance. I was using a different mod that increases it by 1.25 times, but I just did not feel the difference in damage with that one. Another tiny tweak that I made was simple faster horses, because the horses by default are so incredibly slow. Without this mod, most of the time I was just running around, and it is nice to be able to properly sprint in the remaster, but after playing for around 16 hours, I'm getting really tired of seeing this goofy animation. I tried my best to just deal with it and get used to it, but every time I go in third person, I just quickly switch back to first in order to avoid looking at it. Alternative Sprint does a terrific job at fixing this. I was actually quite surprised with the quality of this one given how early it released after the game's launch. These are the ones that I've tried out so far, and I've barely scratched the surface on all of the mods that are out. It's actually astonishing how many mods have come out since the launch. Usually with games you just get really simple mods that don't really change much and they're not worth getting, but genuinely most if not all the mods that I featured here are 100% worthwhile, and I have the majority of them installed permanently. If you enjoyed my attempt at trying to fix and enhance the Oblivion remaster and you're not subscribed, then maybe consider it. I exclusively upload videos on retro games here where I tweak them in many ways to give them a brand new feeling. Also, big thanks to the people supporting me over on Patreon. Becoming a patron is by far the best way to support what I do here on RetroNew, and you can become a Patreon for just £1 a month. Lastly, how about you watch this video next, where I do my best to renew Assassin's Creed 2 using mods. See you over there.